Alex Morgan has officially retired from football, so let's talk about it. It's not often that I have an entire episode on a player's retirement and kind of reflecting on their career. I mean, I probably should, because a lot of the players that have been retiring in the past 2 years do leave behind some incredible legacies, but it does feel quite appropriate to just reflect a little bit on Alex Morgan, her legacy, and really the impact that she leaves behind in the game. It's fair to say that things in the story wrote itself very, very quickly. On Thursday, Alex Morgan announced on social media that she will be stepping away from the game, playing her last professional match at home against the North Carolina Courage on Sunday, as she is pregnant with her second child and preparing for life post-retirement now. And certainly that was not on anybody's bingo card on Thursday, or the fact that it was going to be Alex Morgan's last season. Obviously, there's been a few players that have announced recent retirements, Kelly O'Hara being one of the most recent ones and kind of bigger examples. She said that this is her last NWSL season. And again, it's this cohort and this group of players in this era that now one by one we're seeing retire. I mean, that's kind of the natural progression of the game. And Alex Morgan becomes the latest member of that. Alex Morgan's name has been forever synonymous with the U.S. Women's National Team. I think especially my generation, I would say, the Gen Z generation, and probably even those before me. A lot of us grew up watching the U.S. Women's National Team with Alex Morgan in it. I think a lot of us have not known what the U.S. Women's National Team looks like without Alex Morgan. Obviously, the Olympics was a bit of a moment to reckon with that, and it was a change of eras in the team. It was Triple Espresso that took over, and again, that's the natural shift of what happens to a team. We didn't see Alex Morgan at the Olympics, and it was a glimpse of what the future US team looks like. But for really the longest time, and for over a decade, Alex Morgan's name was synonymous with the U.S. Women's National Team, point blank. She was the face of the team for many years for various reasons. She was one of the biggest marketable points and players of the team across many major tournaments, again, for various reasons. And so it's really difficult to imagine what women's soccer looked like from the outside without Alex Morgan for the past 10 years. She's been in the senior squad since 2011, and across that, she has racked up 224 international appearances. She's won the World Cup twice and was part of the cohort that made 3 consecutive Women's World Cup finals. She's worn Olympic gold. She's also worn multiple bronze medals with 123 goals. That's the 8th on the women's all-time international goal score list. A lot of these goals came in some clutch fashion. You have to think back to the 2012 semi-final of the Olympics. As a Canadian, I hate to remember it, and perhaps it's not been very fun to see some of those videos resurface, but I mean, it's a game and it's a performance from Alex Morgan that is going to stick in the minds of a lot of fans, a lot of American fans, possibly a lot of Canadian fans too. And for a long time, defenders hated seeing Alex Morgan coming at them. They hated seeing Alex Morgan with the ball. They hated seeing Alex Morgan take a shot at goal. There's a reason for that, because she was brutal, and certainly when you examine and rewatch some of the performances of Alex Morgan in her peak years, you think back to the 2019 World Cup, you think back to the 2012 Olympics, it was some incredible magic that she was showing us. And I think she came at a time where it was Alex Morgan being handed the torch from the likes of Mia Hamm. And watching a lot of Alex Morgan's interviews in 2010 and 2011, she spoke a lot about how she wanted to be this next Mia Hamm, and she wanted to be this next role model, and she wanted to be this next person to break a lot of records on the pitch and wanted to score all these goals. And it's funny that she's said that, because she's done exactly what she stated to do, and I think that is beautiful in its own way as well. But speaking of that group of players from 2011 to 2019, we've seen Megan Rapinoe make her way out, Ali Krieger, Julie Ertz, Sam Ewis, even, like I said, Kelly O'Hara joining that bunch. We're left with very, very few of, you could say Sydney Leroux, Kristen Press, who just made her return from injury. It's kind of like they're at the latter stages of their career. Becky Sauerbrunn even. So Alex Morgan was one of those last pieces from what was a very dominating era, this was the team that nobody could beat. This was the team that beat everybody. And again, obviously the level of competition of women's football is very different 10 years ago than what it is today. But it's hard to deny what we saw. 3 consecutive Women's World Cup finals. that's no easy feat. I'm not sure we're going to ever see that happen in the future, because not every team and not every decade-long group of players can do. And so it was this exciting player that came into the squad, was passed on the torch from the likes of Mia Hamm, and now departs from the squad, passing on the torch to the likes of Sophia Smith and Trinity Rodman, who, speaking to the media this week, said that thank you. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are from both a national team player perspective, but also the NWSL. I think we must recognize that there would be no NWSL without Alex Morgan. She was one of the most key parts to what the league is today, to what the policies of the league is, and to how that league was built. Again, we must recognize there would be no NWSL without Alex Morgan. And the NWSL really isn't that old of a league either. Like, it was founded in 2012. It was founded right after the WPS folded. A lot of the clubs from there kind of carried over. There was either a new franchise that followed or kind of change of ownership from how those clubs were folded. But that's where Alex Morgan started her career, the WPS. And from the moment she arrived to the league, she said, what the hell? What do you mean that some of the games aren't broadcasted? What do you mean some of these games cannot be watched, in a different state? Granted, I think the WPS hosted some pretty crazy teams. I will have to remind you, Alex Morgan played on a team with Christine Sinclair, Marta, as well as Ali Riley. That's a team with a lot of legends, if you look at it now. So Alex Morgan certainly gave us some great history and memory there. But from the moment she stepped into that league, it was instant impact of what the hell, how is this not being broadcasted? And that was the same mindset and that was the same attitude that she followed when the NWSL became the NWSL. And obviously it's not been a smooth sailing ride for the NWSL. Nobody's going to sit down and ever say that. Like that's you can talk about the many obstacles, the ever-present growing pains of a league like that, the evolution of a league that still included franchises that folded and ceased operations and then came back in. And for the longest time, players having very little to say to the trajectory of their careers and where they went, and they didn't really have an opinion if they wanted to be traded or not. And so it's not been a very easy time for the NWSL. But the way it's shaped up now for youngsters that can come into the league, that can have a clear picture of the trajectory of their career, they can focus on themselves, they can focus on their teams. A lot of that wouldn't be possible without Alex Morgan. She has done a lot of advocating. She has used a lot of her platforms. She has done a lot of work from behind the scenes. A lot of it, again, comes back to Alex Morgan. And I think to hear this perspective from players was also really, really intriguing at times. A few years ago, I remember in one of the episodes on Snacks, for those who know the podcast Snacks, you're an OG, but it was Sam Ewis and Lynn Williams talking about the NWSL, and Sam Ewis said that there'd be no league anti-harassment policy without Alex Morgan. This is an opinion, and this is a stated fact from a player that was at the league and in the league at the time. So was Lynn Williams. And so when you hear players have that opinion and state that, I think it just tells you really to the impact that Morgan has had on the league. Morgan was also a very important role in supporting her teammates at the time of Sinead Fairley and Mana Shim, who during their time at Portland, all three of them when they were at Portland, there was alleged sexual abuse of these players. And of course, we did find that out in a Yates report, if some of you remember a few years ago. And the investigation did in fact reveal that there was sexual misconduct and there was emotional abuse, and those things were systematic in the sport. Those things happened, and specifically happened at Portland. The hands of former head coach Paul Riley, where both Mana Shim and Sinead Fairley were victims of that. And Alex Morgan was extremely vocal about the unacceptable findings that this Yates report had to reveal. And obviously, I think that report was a catalyst for a lot of change. It led to extensive internal investigations by US Soccer, the league, NWSL Players Association. There was a lot of clearing out. There was a lot of cleaning out. There was a lot of sweeping changes to the protocols, to the processes. And again, Alex Morgan was at the forefront of advocating for a lot of these changes. On top of that, she's also been at the forefront advocating for better coverage of the game, better coverage of women's soccer, better coverage in the NWSL, and better coverage of women's sports in general. You think back at her first game in the WPS and she was like, why the hell isn't this being broadcasted? And you think about her last game, it's being carried by 6 different broadcasters. This is the first time that it's happened. And the fact that she's still making history and she's still making an impact on her last kick of the ball is just beautifully written. And this broadcast topic being something that is surrounding her final day is just so poetic. Like, yes, the coverage is so much better now, and the broadcasting is night and day to what it was when she first entered the league or when she first became a professional player. And I think she's very proud of being able to be part of that change. She was massive in the fight of equal pay that set the standard for many other federations to follow. I think it's also important to recognize that without what the US Women's National Team did, of the likes of Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, and how they achieved equal pay, the sport wouldn't be where it is today. She influenced 2 major bargaining collective agreements for the U.S. Men's National Team Player Association, and she was a huge part in the most recent one, which completely abolishes all forms of drafts in the league. It sets the league on course of more strict FIFA regulations. It's also increased wages and salary caps. So even in the last few months that Alex Morgan's been involved in the NWSL, she leaves with a lot of history, and so we can certainly reflect a lot on what Alex Morgan has done on the pitch, and I think she undoubtedly will be included in the U.S. Men's National Team Hall of Fame and the NWSL Hall of Fame and any kind of Hall of Fame that is to come in the sport. But it cannot be understated how important Alex Morgan was with the impact that she had off the pitch. The sport simply wouldn't be where it is today without her, and I think it is so important to keep saying that. It was great to see she got an assist on her final game. A shame she missed that penalty, but I mean, quite poetic to get the equalizer and an assist in the 13th minute. You can script it. I guess you can kind of script it a little bit better if she would have scored that penalty, but you could see it in her teammates' faces. Everybody is just so appreciative and very lucky to know that we live and exist in an era that got to see Alex Morgan. Again, Canadians maybe not so happy to see a lot of those clips lately, but I think it's going to be exciting to see what she does off the pitch. She's invested a lot. She's spent a lot of money off the pitch to invest in women's sports, and I think we're going to get to see a lot more of that now in the future. It's going to be exciting. I think it's been exciting to see and witness Alex Morgan, and it will certainly be very weird now to not have Alex Morgan play for San Diego in a San Diego shirt, but that's just how the game is. That's just the journey of the game. Retirements happen, and unfortunately we've been seeing a lot of them. Let me know your thoughts on Alex Morgan's legacy. I mean, do you have a favorite moment? Do you have a memory that sticks with you? Do you remember the first time that you watched Alex Morgan? I'd actually love to go through some of these comments. As always, to stay updated and to continue enjoying the beautiful game, make sure you subscribe to me here on YouTube and follow me on Twitter. There's going to be a lot of content coming your way, a lot of league previews. Obviously, there's a few leagues kicking off very soon, as well as a few player interviews that you do not want to miss. I'll catch you later.